So, hello, my name is Quintessence. I'm with PagerDuty, that lovely rainbow logo down there, and I'm here to talk to you about what I've called Unquantified Serendipity, Diversity, and Development. And just as a heads up, this is a very choose your own adventure style talk. So, I don't expect to go through about 15 things and have you try and digest them in a 5-minute presentation. Just pick one, maybe up to three things. If you notice that you're doing them, and try to mindfully and gracefully work your way away from those patterns, and then you can learn and grow out from there. And jumping right into it, let's talk about hiring for a minute. When we're hiring people, we usually focus on things like AWS and Go and Python and frameworks and so forth. But when we actually interview people, once they get past the technical sides, we do this perception game, right? Where we're like, okay, what else do we need on the team? Do we need a team lead? Do we need someone who, the word that's used a lot is culture fit, or anything like that? What else are we actually assessing people on when they come to work at our companies? And when we start assessing on these other things, we actually introduce our bias and our perception. So when we're looking at perception, let's take a step back to leads. Do all groups personify leadership the same way? Do all cultural backgrounds personify leadership the same way? And if not, it's not, indicates the narrator. Can we recognize leadership across backgrounds, across cultures? Can I look at this interviewee that I'm speaking with and actually recognize them as a leader? And beyond those active sets, excuse me, there's also things that we're intentionally selecting on. If we're trying to expand our business out, maybe we need someone who's linguistically and culturally familiar with a certain group or within a certain country, or et cetera. So we can diversify intentionally, we can diversify passively. And this gets me to why I call this serendipity, because when you're looking at diversity, you actually are expanding your solution set, your solution space. And the example I usually give for this is a blog post that was written about 2015 on medium.com, where someone tried to solve an issue where people couldn't type a diacritic S. And the person who was able to solve it saw the problem and immediately knew what was wrong just by virtue of being Polish. To be clear, Medium didn't hire him for being Polish. They hired him for whatever frameworks and languages and et cetera that they were assessing on. But he was able to immediately solve this problem with basically minimal troubleshooting because of his lived experience, then wrote this lovely blog post that's linked in my resources at the end. And the reason that this is all relevant to diversity is if you're not hiring for someone for being Polish, if you're not hiring someone for being gay or Black or any other type of segment of the population that you're trying to focus in on, you're not always going to be able to tell what that person brings in advance, but they are going to bring it just because they live differently than you. And when you're trying to do all of these things, it's also important to remember that not all people experience the environment the same way. So what's safe for me as a white person might not be safe for me as a lesbian, might not be safe for me if I were Black, it might not be safe for me if I were trans, and so forth. So when you're saying, hey, this is a great place to work to someone, fact check, is it? Is it for them? And then move forward. It's also important to remember that your mindset matters when you're approaching all these situations, because when you're looking at your mindset, it's the difference between I'm approaching this person that needs to be coached as a problem versus someone I'm trying to help. How I speak to them will adjust, and what I think to say to them will adjust. Getting started, coach, don't rescue. Rescuing in a professional context typically looks like, hey, let me solve that for you, instead of this is what you look up, this is what you need to pay attention to. And so as a one-off, it doesn't actually matter, right? But you can see if it's over time, if someone's consistently being coached as someone showing them what to do and having them replicate, you can grow a reactive instead of a proactive engineer. And then you start to have conversations around, oh, why do these different people, why do these different groups respond differently to the same problem? It's also important to remember, and this comes up sometimes, that you're giving people a hand up, not out. So the idea here is if you are a mentor or if you're an employer or you have someone that you're coaching, you might introduce them to your professional network. They might network around and get themselves a job. But you didn't get them that job. You didn't hopefully do anything behind the scenes to make that happen. They did that by advocating for themselves. You empowered them. It's also important to support diverse learning styles. All of us have been told at some point in our career that read the manual or something like that. But the manual might be written for a different skill set, a different skill level, or in a language I'm not familiar with. It's not good advice. You need to meet people where they're at. You also want to make sure that you're allowing people to bring their whole self. You might be mentoring them in AWS, Python, or whatever, but they know things and they can help you. They can teach you things that they know and they bring to the table. You also want to make sure that you're the one that's providing them with challenges. If you tell someone to pick a problem and solve it, they're going to pick a problem based on their existing skill set and solve it with that skill set for the most part. But you know what problems they're going to need to solve and you know what skills they're going to need. So design the challenges around that so they can learn and grow and be more productive future forward. You also want to make sure that you're being very resilient. When you're talking about resilience, you're saying, oh, we noticed that there's a wage gap. Oh, we noticed that there's a promotion gap. And instead of just saying that's how it is on the acceptance side, you can say, oh, we can level set the wage gap. We can say, oh, is there a reason there's a promotion gap? Are we only consistently coaching one group to be promoted? Are we missing something? Are we not addressing something? Confidence in terms of promotions is built on knowledge and experience. And I guess not even in terms of just promotions. When you tell someone to fake it till they make it, but they lack the knowledge or experience, you're not fixing what is causing their lack of confidence. But if you address the two pillars, the confidence will grow out of that. You also want to support explicit onboarding. And this is different from social onboarding, which will perpetuate whatever is happening in the now. So social onboarding is, hey, you want to learn about XYZ, make time with so-and-so and learn about it. But if they don't have time, if you only do meetings after work, but someone has to take care of children and so on and so forth, you're going to perpetuate whatever has allowed that to work thus forth and not allow these new people to really integrate into your organizations and teams. You also want to make sure everyone knows their worth. This is for yourself and for everybody else. There's that joke about the DevOps tax. If your title is DevOps engineer, whether or not DevOps should be a title or not, you get a small wage bump as opposed to maybe being a cloud engineer. And if you know that to be true, apply that to yourself and make sure that your mentees and new employees know to apply that as well so they can advocate for the titles that pay best for the same skill set. You also are going to be keeping track in your own professional growth about who's who in hiring. That might be within your own company. It might be really localized. It might be within your own city or within your own state or country. But you know who that is. And as you're mentoring people or as you have new employees, make sure they know them too. Make sure they get introductions made. So again, you're empowering them to continue to grow and be independent. Last but not least, a lot of things have been taking off recently-ish about lean coffee and coffee apps and open coffee where people get to come together and meet. And these are great because it's a cross skill set. It's a cross skill level. So people who wouldn't otherwise have a chance to meet and have a conversation now can. I realize with shutdowns and our current world, this is a little difficult, but you can also do things like Donut and Slack where you have random or kind of random automated meetings. And then I might have a chance to meet a teammate that's located in London or Tel Aviv, and I wouldn't have had a chance to meet them otherwise. And that is the very quick version of diversity and development. Again, my name is Quintessence. I work at PagerDuty. If you want to look at any of the slides, they're all on Notice. There's also some registration links if anyone wants to sign up for any courses that I found in Source that are going to be upcoming in the near-ish future. And please hit me up on the Slack if you have any questions.